another way trust breaks down in those scenarios, I find, is when psychological safety is missing and franchisees are afraid to give their honest feedback, their honest
repercussions,
because they fear the repercussions, right? I'm not going to be approved for growth. My field rep, who usually comes once a month, is now coming every week.
But they can also be very useful. One of the big fast food franchisors in the U.S. and in Canada has an independent franchisee association that is responsible, and I'm not advocating this, but they're responsible for negotiating a lot of the supply chain.
Interesting.
And
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's very unique.
Yeah. I do want to get to that last quick question. I know that previous one was quick, but I do want to quickly jump into that last question. And it's the one that we've been waiting for. Of course, it's coming last. What makes a franchisee advisory council work well? And where do you see brands maybe getting it wrong?
Okay, I'm going to make the question a little bigger.
Okay.
Because the term you used is often misunderstood.
Okay.
There are 3 types of associations in franchising. I'll deal with each one at a time.
Sure.
There's what's called a franchisee association.
Okay.
Franchisee association is formed by franchisees with no help, no involvement of the franchisor.
Okay.
Somebody or some group of franchisees will go out to their franchisees and say, we need to be independent. We need to have strength in numbers. We're going to form an association and we're going to use that as our bargaining entity. When do they start? They start when there's a big problem, for the most part. When there's not good communications, when there's a big dispute, and they're looking at a possible class action. But that, I don't want to speak too much about that, but they do form, and they've been highly publicized as well. And
okay.
But they can also be very useful. One of the big fast food franchisors in the U.S. and in Canada has an independent franchisee association that is responsible, and I'm not advocating this, but they're responsible for negotiating a lot of the supply chain.
Interesting.
And
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
It's very unique.
Yeah.
So now the next one that we'll talk about is the one you mentioned, is the Franchisee Advisory Council. The word is franchisee, like franchisee association, but it's not independent of the franchisor. It's an advisory council. And franchisees shouldn't assume that after they've sold 3 franchises, they're ready for this. I'm asked all the time, because I do a lot of franchise business consulting. When should we have an advisory council? Is it when we have 5 franchises? Is it after 2 years? When you feel it's ready, or it's time, or the franchisees are telling you. Now, a franchisee advisory council, if it's going to be run right, like what I've mentioned with, it should be used as a communications piece between the franchisor and the franchisees. It should be used to reach out to the franchisees at large, to get ideas, to bring new ideas forward, and to regularly have meetings. So the structure of an franchisee advisory council is often started by the franchisor in the first instance. Drops of bylaws, have a program, how many representatives are there going to be from the franchisee.
So some structure to it.
Business. How often are we going to meet?
Mm-hmm.
How are they going to be? How are these representatives going to be determined? Is it going to be by region or by length of time? But it has to be fair. You can't have, now sometimes in the beginning a franchisor will say, I intend to help you develop a franchisee advisory council, but to get started, I want to pick some of our stronger franchisees. But that'll change in a year when we have a mechanism for nominating new ones. The meetings have to be clearly defined. There has to be an agenda. There has to be time allocated to each item. There may have to be some background information gathering by either the franchisor or the franchisees if they're going to talk about something that may be a significant change. And the meetings have to be conducted in a very professional way. They're not there to voice complaints and for people to yell and scream. And then the franchisees, depending upon the size of the system, there will be minutes prepared of the meetings that will be sent out to the franchisee representatives for comment. And then once everybody agrees on those, they will be distributed to the franchisees at large to see what's going on.
Yeah.
What are their representatives doing with the franchisor?
Yeah.
I've had 2 different experiences with franchisee advisory councils. I had one where the franchisor CEO nominated a VP of operations to be the delegate of the franchisor at the franchisee advisor meetings. This individual knew what the agenda was, knew the franchisees were coming to ask questions or ask for resolution. When it was a difficult situation, said, I have to go back to the CEO. I don't have any authority. That franchisee advisory council broke up. There was no trust because, he'll go back. Get back to the franchisees 3 weeks later with a decision that was made without the involvement of the franchisees.
Yeah. And another way I've never experienced the first example that you mentioned with a franchise association, but I have had lots of experience with franchisee advisory councils. And another way trust breaks down in those scenarios, I find, is when psychological safety is missing and franchisees are afraid to give their honest feedback, their honest
repercussions.
Because they fear the repercussions, right? Yeah. I'm not going to be approved for growth. My field rep, who usually comes once a month, is now coming every week. Sometimes communication just completely shuts down. There's repercussions.
It'll end up in a lawsuit.
Right? And so just as important as it is to have structure around, the agenda, the minutes, the allocation, the communication afterwards, I think it's equally important to make sure that there's some ground rules set for how we're going to communicate, top down, down up, all together, and respect being there, and establishing a space that people can truly be honest and not have to necessarily fear the repercussions.
I had one situation where a franchisee advisory board meeting was scheduled. I don't recall how many, 8 people maybe on the board, and sometimes they're franchisor representatives, but the franchisor representatives should never outweigh in number the franchisee representatives. This
Agreed.
Is a franchisee advisory board.
Agreed.
And some of the franchisee members of the advisory board told a lot of their franchise buddies in their local markets to come to this meeting. So the meeting's all arranged, some hotel meeting room, and 15 franchisees walk in and say, we want to hear this meeting. That just ended up in a barnstorm.
Okay.
But they have to be run properly, and I've seen them. They are terrific.
Sometimes they work really well. I mean, you gave the example of the case, the public case, but I've also seen it just work well with resolving conflict and getting buy-in on major system changes ahead of the game, like a year. Hey, we've been speaking about this for a year now. We've brought it up in several meetings. We've given you an opportunity to ask questions.
Now, I guess the challenge in the last few years is getting away from in-person meetings and conducting them by Zoom or other electronic means. Does that negate the viability or the the benefit of having franchisee advisory council meetings, because you don't have the time to interface or get together or have a social event or whatever. You'll get different opinions on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that there was 3. Is there one more
Well,
that you want to talk about?
The other one is something that just for so many years I've been talking about this, because it's a thing in the U.S. with franchising, but it just does not seem to catch on in Canada except with a couple of companies. And that's franchisor advisory boards. I mentioned that I had been on the board of directors of a number of franchise companies, but that's only because they were constituted as a corporation and they wanted me to participate in board meetings. But a franchisor advisory board is like franchisee advisory council. It's a board that advises the franchisor.
Mm.
Now, franchisors may have many advisors. They have lawyers, they have accountants, they have franchise consultants, they have operations people. And I heard one prominent franchisor at a CFA convention who said, I have a franchisor advisory board. It's composed of a lot of the people that I have used in the past to give advice in different areas. And it's also composed of people that I have business relations with that may not even be franchisors or may be experts in my particular market segment.
Mm.
And I call them my trusted advisors.
Love that.
And I won't mention the name, but he's a very successful and well-known franchisor. So you have pick 5, let's say.
Yeah, I've talked about trusted advisors on my show before. It's
pick 5 of your trusted
underutilized
advisors.
Yeah.
They're going to be on a special board.
Yeah.
They're going to give you advice on things that you want advice on, or maybe things that they see that you should be advised on. Mm-hmm. And you're going to they're going to be run with an agenda and with background, and they're going to give you their honest views on different ways of expanding your system. Maybe it may be an acquisition, all kinds of things. But these people collectively multiply the number of years in their businesses times the number of people you've got. You're going to have 100 years of experience there. And the reason I keep saying that this is a great way to get advice, sure, you're going to pay them for their meetings.
Of course.
Some of them want to do it because they want to help you. Yeah. Or they may see that maybe there's an opportunity here for me to invest my time, and eventually if this company goes public or whatever, I get something out of it. But all franchisors start with a particular concept or idea. Mm-hmm. Whether it's food, whether it's home service, whether it's home care. Mm-hmm. It starts with somebody who either starts a business or thinks of starting a business and trying to launch a franchise program. There are exceptions of very successful franchisors that have done this with a dozen different companies. Yeah. They're the exception, though. So when you start let's call it a home service business, because home service businesses are complicated because they largely involve professional, accredited service people, whether they're plumbers or electricians or whatever. And they drive trucks around and they use your logo. But when you, as a franchisor, start thinking about expanding one of those businesses into another field, it'll be a new field for you. And you should be looking around for the best advice you can get. Now, we both know you can go to the CFA and you get a lot of generous people who share their time and are willing to help others, especially when they're at a convention. But when the convention is over, you've got to get on with it.
Yeah.
So you pick. I don't understand why franchisors don't do this.
I'll tell you.
Is it a cost factor?
I don't know if it's always a cost factor. And in my experience, I can say, yes, sometimes it does come down to cost because they don't necessarily see the value.
Yeah.
They see it more as just someone with some advice, but that advice can literally make or break sometimes a decision, right? Or a change or a brand. It's the ego that gets in the way oftentimes. It's, can you be humble enough as a franchisor to sit down, ask a question, and be willing to actually listen, even if it challenges everything that you think is right? And unfortunately, I see the ego being the biggest barrier oftentimes. It becomes more about the person being right, whether that's the CEO, the director, the founder. Specifically founders have a really hard time sometimes letting go of that control. But do you have the courage to be wrong, to pivot, to be shown a different perspective? And unless you can say yes to that question, sometimes that's the biggest barrier to the growth of a brand, is one person that makes it about them instead of the brand.
Well, that's a good point, and I'm sure that in many cases is a factor that dissuades people. But there are very few companies in Canada that have franchisor advisory boards, and there are a growing number that rely heavily on them. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's two people here that can probably... Don't leave me hanging, Frank. Don't leave me hanging, Frank.
Well, I'm available, everybody. And it's truly, I have found my experience, I love franchising, and I just love having these advisory meetings. I love that my views are listened to. They may not be accepted. They may be accepted, but I have experience, and that's the whole idea. Bring in people who are not there. They don't have anything to prove. They're there to help at the request of the franchisor.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's actually safer sometimes to use a third party, someone outside of the organization that can give you a different perspective from the outside in on a decision. It's really difficult sometimes when the person signing your paycheck is the person you have to disagree with. And so...
Well, they can fire me. Take me off the board.
Or when you challenge an idea, it can be perceived as disagreeing with brand direction or not being a team player. These are the things, these are the labels, or these are the assumptions sometimes that are made when challenge
So
a choice.
Some of the alternatives that I've seen executives use is, I don't want to have 5 people discussing these issues together, so I don't need to have these meetings. So what does that person do? Phones each of the 5 ones separately and gets their individual views. That's not a good use of talent.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll convince.
Maybe we'll inspire some people with this conversation.
And believe me, the cost is far outweighed by the benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah, because mitigating brand risk, right?
Yeah.
And litigation is very expensive. So
I want to talk. You mentioned the word risk. I wanted to talk about that. Another area that I see really overlooked in franchising is risk management.
Okay.
If you've dealt with corporations, especially public corporations, they have risk management plans, and there is a template and a method of developing what risk management is. What are the areas of possible risk? How may they come about? How should we deal with them when it happens? And what is our communications program? And we've seen it over the years. It happens in the food business when somebody gets sick or dies of some poisoning at a restaurant. You've got 150 food service outlets that are serving 2,000 people a day. The odds are, at some point in time, something's going to happen. Yeah. Or forget the contamination thing. Somebody's going to have a slip and fall and get seriously injured. These are risks that are commonplace. Yeah. Now, there are specific risks in different franchise systems. Don't wait until it happens to figure out what to do.
That one deserves a camera look right there. Say it to the camera over there, Frank.
Don't wait for it to happen to figure out what to do and who's going to do it. there should be an automatic response from the franchisee. If something happens at the franchisee's location, that person does not deal with the customer. That person has a whole means of communicating with head office.
Yes.
The head office people who are involved in the operations also communicate with the point person.
Yes.
It has to be managed professionally.
Yes.
You're going to deal with the press and social media. The damage can kill you.
Yes.
And very few franchisors have risk management plans. Often, unfortunately, we hear about these situations when it's too late.
Yeah.
I can name names. You can name names.
Yeah.
Everybody listening to us can name names of situations where not only did a major or potentially major catastrophe occur, but the way in which the franchisor handled it.
What happened? It's
running off to some PR firm.
Yeah, it's what happens in the aftermath, right? That
or denying it, or
Yeah.
taking a hard-nosed position. And it damages your brand, which means it damages the franchisees and it keeps customers away.
Yeah. Thank you for that last bit, because we don't talk about that enough, brand risk, mitigating it, and what to do when things go awry.
But my word of advice is there are ways to develop risk management plans. It's not something you try to invent yourself. And do it properly.
Check in with the experts. Okay. Well, I think that is, nothing left in the bag.
The bag? Melissa, you left me with an empty bag. What kind of participation is this?
Oh, I've gotten so much from this conversation, Frank, as I always do. And as we wrap up, I do want to give you an opportunity. If anyone wants to get in contact with you, let the people know how to reach you.
Well, I have my own website, which is frankzaid.com or .ca. I'm also reachable at the organization where I'm a mediator and arbitrator, which is called ADR Chambers in Toronto, and I have I can be contacted at fzaid@adr.ca. I can be contacted at fzaid@frankzaid.com, or you can Google my name and you'll find lots of articles I've written on franchising, and I'm happy to take calls at any time, happy to be of service to help franchisors do it the right way and make this an ethical industry that we're all proud of.
Amazing.
I've been doing this so long. People say, "Why are you doing this?" I say, "Because I love the people. It gave me a great career. It's fun. I'm always learning new things, and I'm happy to share."
Amazing.
And if I make a little bit of money, that's not bad either.
Yeah. Or if you meet great people like...
And the great people like hot perspectives here. But no, well, the people, it's the people.
Yeah, it really is.
Those of us who have been involved in the CFA know the people are wonderful, and they come from all kinds of different backgrounds. And very few people have I met that I would rather not see again.
Amazing. Yeah, that's why I love this industry too. Yeah. It's people like you who share so freely and really come prepared to be of service. So thank you so much, Frank.
Hold on. I have one thing. One last thing to add, because we talked about disputes. So I'm going to read this. And I've written a lot of articles about this.
I don't know if we have time to read it, though,
Frank. Take 15 seconds.
Okay.
A number of years ago, the International Franchise Association Franchise Relations Committee published a handbook entitled Resolving Disagreements by Working Together, a dispute resolution handbook for franchisors and franchisees. The introduction to this book states that resolving disagreements to the satisfaction of both franchisors and franchisees has become the hallmark of successful franchise systems. My take on that is that premise has equal, if not greater, application today.
I love that. Thank you so much, Frank.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, folks, that wraps our episode. And as always, if there's a topic or question that you'd like to see explored on the show, drop it in the comments. See you next time. If you enjoyed the conversation and are curious to learn more about franchising, like, follow, share, and subscribe to the channel.